Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to hear a bit about nuclear risks and AI. We have the pleasure of having Alice Saltini here today. Alice is a non-resident expert on AI at the James Martin Center for Nonproliferation Studies and an AI nuclear policy advisor at the Institute for Security and Technology. She specializes in the impact of AI on nuclear decision-making, and she's focused on mitigating the challenges of integrating AI into military and nuclear weapons systems by translating complex technical concepts into actionable policy insights. In the meantime, developing a general purpose risk assessment framework for analyzing AI and nuclear risks. She's completed studies in Russian studies and non-proliferation studies, and previously worked in the European Leadership Network and the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization. She's carried these insights to policymakers and the public at large through writing and publications like War on the Rocks. And today we have the pleasure of getting to hear from one of the experts who's thought most deeply about the intersection of this risk. So everyone, please help me in giving a warm welcome to Alice Saltini.
Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you very much for having me here and for being here listening to my talk today. Now, when we think about the gravest risks facing humanity today, people tend to think about AI misuse, pandemic, climate change. And in that context, nuclear risks often feel somewhat abstract and something that we can't quite grapple with. And yet, just yesterday, I stepped off a plane from Islamabad, Pakistan, where I presented at a conference on specifically the same topic that I'm presenting on today, only to learn that just as I was presenting, a terrorist attack took place in Kashmir, and particularly on the part of the region that is administered by India. As some of you might know, Kashmir has been a contested territory between India and Pakistan for a very long time. And of course, needless to say that this terrorist attack flared up this decades-long dispute over Kashmir and very quickly spiraling into a crisis in just a matter of a few days. And believe me, I was there, with accusations flying from India of cross-border militancy allegedly linked to Pakistan. Water treaties between the two countries were suspended, both sides exchanging fires across the line of control. India test firing a medium-range missiles over the Arabian Sea, very likely in a show of force over this crisis with Pakistan, and Pakistan announcing its own missile launch off of the Karachi coast. Now, this sounds scary, but let me tell you, this is not the first time that these neighbors had teetered on the brink, and both of them are nuclear armed. And so in such a volatile neighborhood, a detected missile launch leaves a mere few minutes, and I repeat that, a mere few minutes to respond, and obviously making miscalculations so dangerously easy. Now, this recurrent crisis reminds us that nuclear risks are very much not a relic of Cold War. They're very much alive, and a crisis like this one run the risk of cascading into catastrophe. Now, this is very much a scary situation, isn't it? I mean, it was scary very much for me because I was there in Pakistan when all of this was and still is unfolding. But now imagine layering AI into this mix. Opaque algorithm making split-second calls, uneven trust in automated alert, yet seeing AI is indispensable for gaining an advantage, and miscommunications magnified by machine speed decision loops. Now, AI does offer strategic advantages, that's true, but it also risks deepening mistrust and compounding errors when clarity is very much needed and perhaps is needed at the most. And so this is exactly what I'm going to be talking about today. So the risks of the implications at the intersection of AI and nuclear weapons. Okay, so though a few quick points I'll make before I start. Now, first of all, my research and presentation today encompass the most advanced AI models available today, and so going beyond the algorithms that are already integrated into nuclear decision-making components. Second point is that the scope of this discussion is naturally limited due to the opacity of nuclear command and control and communications, so-called NC3 systems, which underpin the nuclear decision-making process. And so as a result, this presentation is not exhaustive, but rather is an attempt to capture the most salient and critical applications within NC3. Third, although I'm providing a generalization across all of the 9 nuclear-armed states today, each of the states present really significant characteristics that merit very much an in-depth analysis, but fall outside of my presentation today due to the lack of time. And finally, the AI nuclear conversation spans many aspects, including deterrence or broader strategic stability implications, but my presentation today will focus specifically at the intersection of AI with the nuclear decision-making component. Okay, now, before deep diving into this, there are 3 quick points that I want to make up front. And while demonstrating an incredible capability, which are advancing by the day, which most of you, I'm sure, will know, AI is not a panacea and obviously has fundamental problems related to the technology, ranging from issues with reliability, vulnerabilities to cyber attack, our inability to align these models to human goals and values, and to understand how an AI makes its decisions. Now, of course, given these limitations, any AI integration in the nuclear domain must be approached with the utmost, with the highest degree of caution. But with that in mind, as we will see along this presentation, there are in fact very clear indications that integrations of cutting-edge AI models into the nuclear domain have already started, though we're not sure which role they will play and to what extent. Second point is that the extent of AI capabilities and its limitations and implications are not fully understood. And of course, as the technology develops, these capabilities are poised to change, potentially solving some of the current issues, but potentially generating a whole new set of risks that we're unable to predict at this point in time. And third point, when AI is intersected with the nuclear domain, although there are some benefits that can be gained by a cautious integration with an understanding of the nature of the technologies, there is really a wide range of risks and implications which depend upon 3 key factors, which are the different types of AI technology considered for integration, the areas where AI will be integrated, not only within the nuclear decision-making components, and so NC3, but also within the multitude of systems and subsystems that fit into NC3, and even outside of the nuclear domain altogether, which still impact the nuclear decision-making. And third is the level of human control and redundancies. And therefore, because of all of these variables, the integration of AI in high-stakes domains are incredibly nuanced and complex. And so as a result, what we need to do now is to better understand these implications with a view to establish thresholds for high-risk integrations to ensure that in case of a system failure, nuclear systems are not compromised and risk of miscalculations are not increased. So yeah, so this is exactly what we're going to be talking about. So now let's deep dive into this. So today's advanced AI models, such as foundation models and reasoning models, have shown an incredible ability to generalize across diverse tasks and to continuously improve as they're fed with larger data set and more computational power, which has led to the development of, yes, tremendous capabilities. Now, for example, obviously, we're witnessing like incredible advancements with reasoning models, such as OpenAI's O1, O3, and O4 families. Now, these models are designed, I mean, all of you probably will know this, but these models are designed for complex reasoning by generating and extending internal chain of thought before responding to a task, which obviously has groundbreaking application for problem solving and scientific research. At the same time, we're also experiencing exceptional advancements in AI coming from China, with DeepSeek being a clear example. DeepSeek is a Chinese AI startup that just a few months ago released an open source model, R1, matching OpenAI's O1 in capabilities, but at a fraction of the cost, and despite US export controls on AI chips, which were specifically intended to curb Chinese AI program. Now, capabilities of these advanced AI models obviously promise incredible benefits for society, but they also introduce grave risks that stem from the nature of the technology and the ways it is used. And so with rising geopolitical competition, AI is increasingly seen as a tool that can provide a significant strategic advantage in military contexts, including in the nuclear domain. And in fact, it could have such a significant advantage that from states' perspectives, they can simply not afford to miss out on that one. And because of this potential for an advantage, nuclear-armed states are now seeking to integrate AI in functions that might directly or indirectly affect nuclear decision-making. And what I mean by that is that this consideration might range from integration directly within NC3 or in adjacent systems that ultimately feed into it and thus indirectly affecting outcomes. Now, NC3 architectures vary significantly across nuclear-armed states as they reflect the country's unique doctrine and nuclear postures. But broadly speaking, they encompass the infrastructures, protocols, and systems that enable national leadership to control nuclear forces and to communicate its decisions. And rather than being composed of isolated components, NC3 is a complex network of many interconnected systems and subsystems that work together to monitor, coordinate, and execute nuclear missions. Now, these interconnected systems span force management, planning, decision-making, and force direction that together form a continuous cycle of data gathering, analysis, and execution. Now, this interdependency means that AI applications are not confined to a single node, but rather they can concurrently enhance multiple segments or functions of NC3. Now, for example, AI-driven predictive analytics can model diverse threat scenarios and simultaneously supporting situation monitoring, adaptive planning, and providing decision support outputs that streamline force directions and execution. And just as importantly, the third C of NC3 encompasses communication and ensures the need for information to be moved securely via various secure pathways, so that even under adversarial interference or even direct attack, connectivity remains continuous and reliable. So this is more or less the idea of how NC3 functions. But since most NC3 systems were built during the Cold War, they're now outdated and they do not match very well today's evolving threat environment. And so modernization in this sense is necessary to improve the system safety and operational effectiveness. And so AI integration here is happening at the backdrop of this ongoing modernization, whereas the aging nuclear infrastructure creates an incentive to integrate AI by either keeping a technological edge or gain a strategic advantage, but most certainly not to fall behind adversaries. And clearly the ongoing geopolitical competition further compounds these issues. Now, the discussions about a role in nuclear systems at this point remains somewhat speculative, because in the context of AI integration and its implication for nuclear decision-making, we're very much making informed guesses. Now, that's still the case because given the nature of NC3 for national security, a significant portion of the systems remained sensitive and therefore classified. And as a result, some speculation is inevitable, leaving researchers too often needing to connect the dots where today's AI could potentially be integrated by examining defense contractors' briefing of subsystems undergoing modernizations and open source data to hypothesize if, where, and when AI will be integrated. On that note, I actually just want to flag that this is a work that we're currently doing at the Institute for Security and Technology, where we actually just wrapped up a workshop in Washington, D.C. just a few days ago, which was specifically dedicated to this topic. We'll soon be publishing the preparatory material and the project's findings, if you're interested in that. But with that in mind, so there are still some assumptions that we can make based on publicly available statements from high-level officials or military personnel and from new technological developments. Now, for instance, President Biden, former President Biden and Xi Jinping have publicly committed to maintain human control over their use of nuclear weapons deployment, which is a commitment that was shared also by the other nuclear states, such as the UK and France. We've also heard from the U.S. From the head of the U.S. Strategic Command, General Cotton, acknowledging that AI will definitely play a role in modernizing NC3 systems by automating data collection and speeding up data sharing with allies, and broadly speaking, by enhancing the nuclear decision-making capabilities. We've also heard OpenAI announcing a new partnership with U.S. national laboratories, which is where the research on nuclear weapons is taking place, to deploy its reasoning models for scientific research across national labs, including in the nuclear weapons industry for researchers with security clearance. And finally, we've also heard Anthropic announcing their own collaboration with U.S. national labs to evaluate frontier AI models, including Anthropic's hybrid reasoning model, building on an ongoing collaboration with the National Nuclear Security Administration and the Department of Energy's national labs. Now, more details on how OpenAI and Anthropic envision their latest models to play a role in the nuclear weapons industry are not given at this stage, although OpenAI has mentioned safety research and work to, quote, reduce the risk of a nuclear war, end quote. And Anthropic mentioned research to understand how AI can contribute to addressing national security risks in the nuclear domain. And so given these statements and these emerging developments, we can reasonably assume that the integration of today's state-of-the-art AI into nuclear system has already started. Okay, so where does AI have a role for nuclear decision-making? Well, broadly speaking, AI is seen as a tool that can help human decision makers making better informed and faster decisions. And so up until now, always with a human in the loop. AI is seen as particularly valuable for quicker threat detection and analysis of real-time data. And so specifically for this reason, we can easily see a role for AI in early warnings or in other intelligence platforms for analyzing data from space-based sensors and ground-based radars to verify a missile launch, for example, as well as to support decision-making functions by providing courses of action and forecasting potential scenarios. Now, to give some specific examples, multiple sensors and information sources, such as satellite imagery, radar, signal intelligence, and open source data feed into centralized hubs where diverse data sets are consolidated. Now here, AI offers the prospect of performing multi-sensor fusion to fuse diverse data sets from many sensors more quickly and more efficiently to better discriminate real warheads from decoys, for example, for damage assessment, identifying changes in adversaries' behaviors, and so forth and so on. Another example is AI for decision support. Now, decision support tools can incorporate contingency planning and simulation tools that allow commanders to view what-if scenarios. And so modernizations here, like efforts for modernizations are exploring AI to assist with suggesting courses of action under various scenarios for training and simulations to help decision makers be better prepared in actual crisis, for generating new operational plans and support adaptive planning. And yet another example is constituted by the prospects of AI to better connect field units, intelligence centers, and command posts through secure communication pathways with decisions and critical data across the entire network of nuclear forces. But even with AI being under the firm control of human decision makers, what does that mean in practice? And is this enough to avoid inadvertent nuclear escalation? No, it's not. And here I'll show you an example of why that is the case.
For some, life is good. But in dangerous times, things can change in a heartbeat. As warfare gets more sophisticated, the capacity for human error increases. Our world is moving faster and becoming too complex for the human brain alone to process. We need help. Introducing TLDR. Threat, likelihood, deadline, recommendation. The world's most advanced artificial intelligence defense system. Empowering you to make critical decisions faster than ever before. TLDR, helping you make the world a safer place. That's why today we are pleased to announce TLDR. Threat, likelihood, deadline, recommendation. A command and control system that helps you make sense of global sensor data, both military and commercial, at machine speeds.
So this thing is basically Skynet from those movies where everyone died?
No. I've always said, if you take the human choices out of the process entirely, it will end in disaster. I'm talking about informing human choices, not replacing them, with the very best data on all the key decisions.
So it won't act autonomously?
The humans will always control the AI, not the other way around.
Get it tested, get it deployed. I want it watching the skies, watching cyberspace, watching China. Get the allies to buy in. We need to be first on this.
报告长官，发现武装飞行器正在进入我们的领空。系统识别是无人机，是否把它击落？导弹系统已经瞄准目标。长官，我们还有18秒。
他们有越境，发动攻击。好，
他们把它打下来了。
哦，这是怎么回事？
首长，我们的无人机 AI 导航系统，它做出了错误的判断。
我们的新系统给我们一个什么方案？
首长，我们现行的方案是，把我们的 AI 代理植入对方的网络防御系统，一旦进入，就会扩散至各个相连接的通道，继而破坏他们的整个系统。
好吧，锁定他们的防御系统。
There it is again.
Multiple attacks now, sir. Something's probing us via the Taiwan link.
From Taiwan?
Seemingly Chinese in origin.
The Chinese wouldn't hack our nuclear control. Unless they're serious.
首长，这儿有新的情况，我们监视到美国的核武器有动静，而且他们正在同步进行中。
这些都是协调行动，也可能只是一种演习呀。
可是首长，如果这只是演习，那我们的 AI 系统为什么现在就建议我们去做预防措施呢？
Looks like they're serious, sir. First cyber attacks, and now SIGINT is reporting communications between some of their nuclear facilities. So this is escalating, and it's happening fast.
Well, we know what they're doing. What we don't know is why.
The president's on his way.
How long is he gonna be? The speed this is going, we may have to go to DEFCON 3.
It's too late for that, sir.
the system meant to give us more time to make decisions?
组长，我有个建议，让我们的攻击型潜艇进入1级战备，然后让我们再靠近一些。
好的，去吧，就这么执行。
Signals are going out to Chinese unmanned submarines, Mr. President. We can't be certain, but we believe they may be kill orders.
无人潜航体显示，美国的舰队集体改道了。我们不能确定，但很有可能是一种战斗发射编队。
It's impossible to tell if this is real or whether our systems have been compromised by fake data from the other side.
So much for the humans will always be in control of the AI.
Now getting word from the Chinese to stand down. They're saying they're as confused as we are, but that could all be part of the script.
They're not standing down.
That's one of our nuclear missile subs.
主席，
Almost 200 nuclear warheads and some of our finest on board.
我不知道最后是我们先动手，还是他们先动手。
It's hard to say if they started it or if we started it.
但我们必须警惕，战争一触即发。
Either way, we have to assume it's starting.
Mr. President, we need to move to the bunker now.
Don't go crying, babe. Not tonight. The world is out there for you. Don't go crying, babe. Everything's alright.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop here. You can get them, but oops. Okay. So what we just watched is a short movie made by the Future of Life Institute. It depicts very, very well what the problem is, even when humans remains in the loop. So let's take stock of what we just watched and go a little bit deeper into why the concept of human in the loop alone is just a good starting point, but this is much as it is, and it's no way sufficient to avoid an unintended nuclear escalation. Now, the fundamental challenge for this is that we do not fully understand the AI's implications when it comes to the nuclear domain and nuclear escalation in particular. This is due to 4 key challenges. Well, first of all, AI can still influence nuclear decisions even without direct integration within NC3. And in fact, functions outside of the traditional NC3 architecture can feed into decision-making and thus indirectly affecting outcomes. And this really complicates our assessment because we already don't have a full picture of NC3 and of adjacent systems. And second, it's extremely difficult to predict how AI will advance. For example, today's advanced AI has specific attributes that renders it unsuitable for high-stakes domain. For example, these systems are unreliable, prone to hallucinations, meaning anything from a chatbot coming up with facts about an historical event to a vision model seeing things that aren't there. They're also opaque and black box, and particularly for large and complex models. Now, chain of thought prompting of reasoning models in reality greatly improves transparency by eliciting intermediate reasoning steps, but empirical work has actually shown that those chains sometimes fail to align with the model's final answer, and of course, leaving the core problem of black box still intact. AI is also vulnerable to cyber attack, as we just saw, and presents alignment issues, meaning that we can't quite align these models to our human goals and values. And in fact, the new research released from Anthropic has demonstrated that some models have demonstrated alignment faking tendencies and even a deceptive behavior. Now, all of these limitations obviously persist even when a human is in the loop, as we just saw. Now, however, it is also important to note that the specific attributes emerge not necessarily because the models are doing something wrong per se, but because they're like a statistical approximation. That's obvious. I mean, in the case of large language models, they are a statistical description of languages based on their relationship with words. And so, of course, this doesn't capture the nuances of the real world, because the real world doesn't follow the same smooth probability distributions that these that large language models learn from their training data. And so this simply means that what these models are able to do is not fit for specific applications, and particularly those involving high stakes. Now, it is somewhat conceivable that these limitations may be resolved in the future, but we're just not there yet. And even assuming that we can solve all of these issues, new problems can also arise that we're just not able to predict as of yet. And third, states may integrate AI into their nuclear enterprise to address different needs. Yes, like influenced by unique doctrines, the capabilities, and threat perceptions. Like, for example, some may view AI as a way to compensate for perceived inferiorities or gaps in strategic capabilities. And finally, we still lack a clear understanding of what constitutes a safe AI integration in the nuclear domain. There is no established consensus on what safety thresholds states are currently considering for AI application in the nuclear domain, and even more importantly, how these thresholds might differ across nuclear armed states, and particularly given the high stakes that even a single error could trigger. It is also conceivable to think that states that perceive themselves as being at a strategic disadvantage may be more willing to accept higher risk of integration if AI offers strategic advantages such as faster decision-making and strategic parity. So obviously, this is a very dangerous situation that we really should seek to avoid at all costs. Okay, so what? Well, overall, current models present many risks, and our ability to mitigate those today is inadequate. Now, there is a lot of ongoing research focused on addressing the technological challenges associated with AI, and especially to ensure that they can operate reliably even under adversarial conditions, or to make these models more explainable. But unfortunately, we're just not there yet. And as I said before, as technology matures, it is possible that these challenges may be overcome, but it is also possible that new risks will arise and we're just not able to predict them. And so at this point, there is way too many ifs and whens. And then there is also like a really, really huge landscape of risks and implications which depend upon three key factors. So as I said before, the attributes of the model considered for integration, the area of integration within NC3 or other systems that feed into NC3, as well as the level of human control and oversight. And ultimately, the balance of all of these elements determines AI's impact on nuclear escalation and help us pinpoint high-risk integrations. But we're still far from understanding how these factors interact with each other. And to that end, what is the most logical next step to identify risk integrations? Well, is to conduct risk assessment frameworks by quantifying risks to help us classify high-risk applications beyond the simple commitment of human in the loop, and to inform the development of thresholds for integration.